Hey guys, I'm MD Gaming and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the Tier 5 Tennessee. This is going to be a real good match, a real David and Goliath type of match. Our commander is going to be William Sims, and our inspirations are going to be Andrew Cunningham for his main battery shell grouping, along with a Chino again for main battery shell grouping. We're going to focus on an accuracy build for all the American battleships. The flammable cannoneer is going to be the first trait we choose. We're going to have main battery range extended, and then also the battleship main shell grouping is also going to be improved. Yes, there's a higher risk of catching fire, but we're going to mitigate that with the legendary skill, Fight Fire with Fire. Next is gyrating drill bits. It's going to focus on battleship traverse speed, and we're going to increase that AP damage that we use. Yes, we're going to take a hit at maximum battleship speed, but as long as you mitigate your ship placement on the map, it'll not really affect you that much. Next is going to be marksmanship. We're going to do main battery dispersion. Yes, we're going to hit with rudder shift time, but it's not going to be that noticeable. And then the last normal one is reaching out XXL for extending the battery range that we have. Our legendary skill is going to be Fight Fire with Fire. That's just going to be able to reduce the fire damage we receive over time. And if we're on a damage control party cooldown, if we catch 3 fires, it'll automatically run a damage control party, which can put out fires, and then as well as floods if we have any. So let's jump to the game and let's talk about how to play the Tier 5 Tennessee. The Tier 5 Tennessee plays like most other American battleships in that it is a very slow moving battleship with very strong guns, and its armor is effective as long as you are angling properly against your enemy. And that's one of the biggest things about American battleships, is that when you're playing them, there's a high chance you won't be able to use the back 2 turrets, because as you angle to ricochet the enemy's shots, you're going to lose the firing angles of those back 2 turrets. It's just something with the ship when you're at closer ranges, so just bear that in mind as you're playing the Tier 5 Tennessee. Now, when you're playing any type of ship, when you look at the map, we have a standard domination map. Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie are evenly spaced out. I'm starting off on the Alpha side, meaning that my responsibility is to try and capture Alpha, or at least delay the enemy from capturing Alpha and pushing further into our side, which will create crossfire between our friendlies, which is going to be very difficult for them to defend, and will end the game a lot quicker with us taking a loss. So always defend the side that you start on initially, and then as the battle develops, then you can start adjusting your play to better assist your team. The only exception to this is going to be if you're the middle players. There you're going to pick a side to support, and then you're going to support them. It's very important to look where enemies are actually pointing their turrets at. This is going to allow you in your ship to open up your angle of attack and allow you to fire all 4 turrets at your enemy. And then always remember to close your angle of attack when you're not in any type of firing position. That way if anyone's trying to shoot armor piercing at you, you have a higher chance of ricocheting those shots, mitigating a lot of damage that could have came to you. We're going to do a side note right here. I saw the 2 Warships and the Huga, and I was like, who's the 4th? I was like, California, what did Wargaming put me into? I look in the map and I see they only have 3 tech tree ships, along with 4 battleships that are all contenders for the best battleship at Tier 5. How did Wargaming think this was fair? This is going to be a rout, but it's going to show you that actually it was not a rout. That technique in tech tree ships can beat out premium play. And once you know what type of battleships you're dealing with, it's important that you create distance to not be engaged with enemies crossfire. So moving closer towards A and away from C is going to prevent the Huga in California from doing some type of crossfire, which would then hit my citadels and do massive damage to me. The Champagne moved forward, so as a battleship player, what you're going to need to do is know what ships have torpedoes and which ships do not. Since the Champagne has deep water torpedoes, I want to be moving left and right and maneuvering myself constantly to disrupt that prediction line that the Champagne has until he dies, and that way it'll prevent him and mitigate him being able to actually shoot torpedoes at me. Also, when you're so close to enemies, throwing it into a full reverse and turning into where the enemy is very important, because it throws off the prediction line and reduces the surface area the enemy can attack you. Just now you see the torpedoes are to the right of me. If I was still going full speed, all those torpedoes would have hit, I would have had a flood, and I would have been back at port in a lot quicker time. But because I was able to go to full reverse and turn into them, I was able to avoid those torpedoes because most players use the prediction line as where they shoot. So always changing it up is going to make it a lot harder for those torpedoes to hit. Now the next focus is going to be destroying the enemy battleships because we just took care of the closest cruiser. When you're playing against enemy battleships, you want to make sure that you're doing a good angle towards them. Yes, this is going to allow those shots that the enemy fires AP to ricochet a lot better. And yes, it's also going to reduce the amount of damage that you can do because you're not doing a full salvo. But the object of the game is not to do most damage. The object of the game is to last as long as you can, because the longer you last, the more damage you'll do over time. If you try to take high risks, it's just going to pay off with you going to port a lot quicker. So making sure that you have a good angle is more important than making sure that you can fire with all your guns. So now we have the Warspite in front of us. He's pushing with very low health. Yes, we're only going to fire with our 2 front gains. We got the Mackensen who helps us inside. And we're shooting at the waterline to try to get those citadels. Again, RNG plays a major factor in this. And we mitigate the risk of being shot if RNG fails us by doing proper angling techniques. Now we're going to talk about target prioritization. Sometimes as a player, you're going to try to focus on the player right in front of you, but really it's more important that you focus on the enemy that is easier to kill. The more players you get off the board, the easier it is for your team as a team player. Again, we're not going for max damage, we're going for the win, and going for the win is going to give you the max amount of points you can. And you should always be trying to shoot the enemy that's easiest to kill until they're dead. A lot of times players will see that an enemy is very low on health and decide that someone else has the responsibility of killing them. When they do that, everyone thinks the same way, and an enemy that is on like the last leg then gets a couple repairs or then gets distance to now they're going to effectively be back into the game. When you're this close to an enemy, you're going to try to focus on trying to shoot again at the waterline. That waterline is going to be very beneficial. You're going to have a higher chance of getting citadels. And always make sure you're checking the enemy's turret locations. If they're not focused on you, take higher risks. The more risks you take when the enemy is not paying attention to you, the quicker you can get the enemy off the board. So this Warspite is focused solely on this Mackensen. It's going to allow me to get all 4 guns upon him, and then I'm able to then fire a full salvo and then get 5 penetrations, ultimately killing him for like 13,000 damage. So always make sure you're checking for turret. Now we got the Hyuga, it's the Mackensen and I. When you and another player are essentially teaming up on one battleship or one cruiser, try to split the difference. Try to one battleship to go on the left side and the other battleship to go on the right side. It's going to require the enemy to choose which side they're going to try to angle against, and whichever side they angle, that friend is not going to do that much damage, but it is going to open up a good angle for broadside citadels from the other friend. This is a common point right here that we were talking about earlier, is target prioritization. The Hyuga is solely focused on the Mackensen, who's angled perfectly towards him. If he were to shoot me as I had the higher broadside to him, he probably would have been able to do at least 30,000 damage to me. But because he was solely focused on the Mackensen, we were able to mitigate as much damage as possible, and then we're able to kill the Hyuga as a team. Because again, the Hyuga is solely focused on this close range Mackensen that is not even paying attention to a full broadside tendency. So always be aware where the enemy turrets are and take those risks where you can, because they're going to pay off in the long run. Now you're going to be left with 2 choices. You can either start heading towards B for the capture point, or you can help kill the Hyuga. And it's always more important, again, target prioritization. Kill the enemies that are the easiest to kill, and then focus on the others. And that is why the technique of angling and target prioritization is essentially what's going to take to win the game. Because you have the Mackensen and I against 2 Warspites and a Hyuga, who both ships are arguably the top tier 5 battleships in the game, and yet combined the Mackensen and I probably have more than half our health each. And it just goes to show that a team of 2 that can use technique can beat out a premium team of 4 that do not use technique, that just go broadside, trying to go for the high damage, rather than going for the long game, angling towards me, not having as many turrets as they should to do damage, but again, preserving their gameplay, allowing them to last a lot longer. But now, because they took the high risk and lost, the Mackensen and I are going to be able to effectively just push our way into B and C, making it very difficult for the enemy to find any other places where they can hide, shoot behind islands, and that type of thing to better support their team. Another thing I like to talk about is if you look at red team right now, they're all the way to the back of the map with their backs against the wall. As a player, you don't want to try to be here. You want to try to push up as much as possible. Sometimes closer confrontation is better. And that's because if our team wanted to, we could just capture B and then throw ourselves into reverse and then have the enemy try to follow us to try to make the captures because we have the capture points. And if we have the capture points, there's no way the enemy team is going to win. But a lot of times when they're playing in the back, you have blue team who just want to keep pushing forward. When you keep pushing forward, sometimes it lets the enemy have the advantageous spot, especially if they have like HE spammers. But a good team is going to notice this, and once they capture all three positions, they're going to pull back and then force the enemy team to come to them, which is just going to make it easier for the blue team to take the shots as the enemy tries to take the caps. Now, going back to target prioritization, the Exeter was moving left and right multiple times, being real squirrely. So really, even though the California is a further distance away, he is a better target because he has lower health and he's unaware of where I'm actually firing from. This is going to allow us to, again, get another piece off the board, which is going to reduce the chances of the California somehow getting a massive Citadel hit on, let's say, a friendly force. And yes, you'll be taking damage from the enemy Exeter or any other ship that's trying to do the damage, but again, if you can get a piece off the board, it's just going to help the team out a lot better. This reduces the California from being able to do any more damage to our team, so this is actually the better play. And with that piece off the board, it's going to allow your other blue team members to then focus on either going after the Heinrich or the Exeter or other ships in general. As you saw, because the California went down, one of the other battleships was able to use his rounds on the Exeter, did a lot of damage, and now has reduced the Exeter's ability to move left and right because now he's being attacked at other angles, which essentially is going to help out the blue team get other pieces off the board a lot quicker. I'd also just like to say I was one RNG shot away from destroying the Exeter and getting a Kraken, but you know, sometimes the shells land where they land. But I think this game really shows the importance of how to use technique on a ship and really emphasizes how strong the Tennessee actually can be if you're angling properly and you're not going full broadside. Yes, it is an extremely slow ship, but if you can angle yourself, those very strong guns can do a lot of damage to the enemy, and you're going to be able to see how effective you can be if you just do the proper angle technique. The ship gets very frustrating when you just try to go for long shots with a full salvo, exposing your full broadside. That's how you lose quick. But if you just focus on two turrets and angle properly, you're going to see a lot better game improvement with the Tennessee. Now, for the battle performance, I was able to do 148,000 damage. I destroyed 4 ships. One of them was a Citadel. RNG was hating on me. 1 capture. My medals was Dreadnought, Fireproof, First Blood, and High Caliber. On the team results, you're going to see that it was a David and Goliath type of match. I wouldn't have been where I was in the leaderboard without the Mackinson, so hats off to you, man. I appreciate it. And with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, but more importantly, leave a comment down below. Let me know what I'm doing right. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. And with that, MD Gaming out.